Hello, I have chosen to analyze the essay My Little Bit of Country, written by the American writer Susan Cheever. The essay is published in 2012 and is furthermore a part of the anthology Central Park. In the essay, Susan Cheever mostly states her love to the New York City and mostly in the view of Central Park. She talks a lot about the two different kinds of lifestyle that you can live. We have the city-loving people whose whole life is the loud noises and the intense chaos of the city with all its opportunities. And in contrast to this, we have the country folk who find themselves most comfortable in a peaceful and a quiet country among landscapes and so on. And she places the city and the country diametrically opposed to each other, and she also describes her relationship to the nature. Yeah, and she begins her essay by telling about her memories of summer mornings in Central Park with her father after he returned from fighting World War II. And she tells about the two of them going to the Central Park Zoo, and then she compares herself with her favorite animal at that time, namely the yak. And we see it here in this quotation. Something about him suggested a great acceptance of the world in which he found himself so far from his snowy native mountains and bubbling brooks. I too often felt, even then, at the age of 3 or 4, that I had come from another exotic foreign place to live, with my disappointingly ordinary family, in New York City at 400 East 59th Street. Yeah, and in this way Susan Cheever distances herself from the rest of the people in her life, and then she compares herself with this yak who lives in his cage in the zoo, and it seems like that she finds the zoo and the yak very fascinating, which I think is very interesting because a zoo in a way is a very unnatural and fake place in nature, which is created by humans, where tamed animals also are being exhibited. And you get the feeling that she's feeling alienated and strange in nature, but I will elaborate that later on. I think it's very interesting noticing how literally the essay is written, and especially when Susan Cheever describes her relationship to New York here on page 8. She describes New York as something almost magical and divine place on earth, and she puts a lot of emphasis on representing the city in the best possible way. For example, when she almost romanticizes Central Park here, when she calls it her full-blown love affair. And then her love to the city is very contrasting to her relationship with the real country, and especially according to the people around her. Here she describes herself as being the lone dissenter, which means that she had a significant different view of the city and the country compared to the rest of her associates. Because when her parents wanted to move to the country, she didn't want it to go, simply because she wasn't able to see or understand the negative things about living in the city. And when she talks about the two different kinds of lifestyles, the word choice and the contrasts between them are very sharp and noticeable. We see it here in this quotation where it says, why would I want to scrape around the rough, dangerous ice of a country lake when I could glide around the smooth ice at the Walman rink and pause for a hot chocolate when my toes and fingers got too cold? Were these people crazy? And then we see that the country life is compared to something dangerous and rough and inconvenient, while the urban life, on the other hand, is something easygoing with all the opportunities that you could wish for. And this contrast is a very common feature in the essay when she describes the city and the country, which we also see here. Country children may have had ponies, but my kids had the delicious carousel with its honky-tonk music and bright stallions. And then again here, suburban children had fancy art classes. My children had the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And here she portrays a very artificial nature in the way that the real ponies in the country are being replaced with plastic and fake stallions on a carousel, and the art classes is replaced with a museum of art. This represents a place, this museum, where the art is limited and controlled in its way of being exhibited, just like I talked about before, like the animals in the zoo. Yeah, and I think that you could argue that these human interventions make the city seem unnatural and artificial, but this does not apply to Susan Cheever, the writer. It seems like she likes this controlled nature, where the man has taken over nature to create it as he wants to, and this is shown here. Where it says it's the collision of man and nature, the collaboration of the human and the divine, that makes the most poignant landscape. Yeah, and it seems like she finds the man-made nature very fascinating, and she describes man and nature as being in some sort of harmony. But the interesting thing is that the nature she is mentioning and feels like she's in some sort of connection with isn't real nature, which she also explains herself here. I have to confess that in the wild country, far from other people and the cozy hum of electric generators and the clatter of traffic, I am often frightened. And then again here, nature and the country is not so cute, and so on. And in this way, the real nature in the country actually scares her, because of the fact that it isn't controlled or limited by any human beings. And this might indicate that she's afraid of the real nature because she feels that it's bigger than her, and it's something that she can't control. It's too overwhelming and mystical, and it's most important is something that she cannot grasp as the way that she felt she could with the ponies at the carousel and the art at the museum and so on. Here it says, I feel utterly defenseless. I long for the safety of the city where nature is so beautifully and spectacularly kept on a leash. And here is the metaphor kept on a leash used to sort of emphasize her thoughts about the nature, which has to be controlled and tangible. And it becomes very clear again how afraid Susan Cheever is for this untamed and the wild nature. And I think that you could say that her mindset is very modern, because you find the nature most beautiful when it is being interrupted or affected by a man or a society.